Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today is Saturday, May 3rd. It's episode 48. Today's not going to be as long of an episode. I hope not. What we're going to do is we're not going to talk about Canelo School. I already covered that in episode 47. That's happening tonight. We'll do episode 49 tomorrow. We'll talk about whatever happens tonight. Today we're going to talk about Times Square. And man, what a tragedy and what a nightmare it was. And I say tragedy, it's probably a little bit too far. But this event just did not go as planned really in any way. And to be honest, most of it was not the production's fault. Some of it was, with like the setup that they chose to do the whole event in. That had some issues, but it just ended up being a really lackluster night. None of the fights really had too much buzz. Reito Tsutsumi probably had the most exciting fight against Lavelle Whittington, and even then, he didn't look as incredible as we all had hoped. He just had a really tough opponent and did what he had to, but he got hit a good bit. I don't know if we can say he won every single round. Not like the dream debut you would want in Times Square, but he still looked really well. He still dominated the fight, and he still got a huge future ahead in the super featherweight division. I think he is. He's either a featherweight or super featherweight. I think he weighed in at like 128 or something, but I thought he debuted fine, but not the most spectacular thing. You had the Battle of the Badges to kick off the night, which was okay. It was kind of fun, whatever. And then you get to the main fights. The main reason people came. Teofimo Lopez defeated Arnold Barboza Jr. in to give him his credit, a fantastic performance, and that was probably the best fight of the night. Of these big ones for sure it was. It still wasn't super exciting. I just thought that Teofimo looked brilliant. We'll talk about that in a second. And then you had Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez, which is worst fight of the year. It is number 3 on CompuBox for the least amount of punches thrown over a 12-round fight. It was horrific to watch. Devin Haney won every round, but he looked terrible. And then the main event, the upset. Rolly Romero defeated Ryan Garcia over 12 rounds, dropped him big time in the second. I don't know if I would say he dominated him. I don't think it was quite super one-sided, but he totally won that fight, hands down, and looked really strong, looked really good, and Ryan just had a terrible night. So the Ryan Garcia-Devin Haney rematch has lost, I wouldn't say all, but so much of its excitement. And it's just is another case of boxing shooting itself in the foot. And I'm just sitting there watching it, and I'm like, we should have just done the rematch tonight. We should have just done it. And to be honest, even when they announced this, I was like, okay, I get they want to set it up, but like, let me take you back to December 23rd, 2023 in Riyadh. Day of Reckoning. Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, main and co-main events on a big pay-per-view card. And, they had tough opponents, but opponents that they were big favorites against. And we were saying, we're going to get an upset. We know they're trying to set up the fight. They were planning to have a face-off and announce the fight right then and there. And that didn't happen. AJ defeated Volin pretty quickly, pretty easily. And then Wilder had the worst performance ever, and Joseph Parker dominated him over 12 rounds. And we never got that fight. And this is the exact same thing almost, where Devin Haney, even though Devin Haney won every round, he looked so bad. He was so afraid to get hit. He was so bouncing around, so much nervous energy. And you saw, man, he really is scarred from this Ryan Garcia fight. He's like, I can't afford to get hit. And you're in with Jose Ramirez, who's got more pop than Devin does, sure, but he's not the biggest puncher in the world. And so Devin Haney was able to, he's still a fantastic world-class boxer, and was able to just outbox Ramirez, and he wasn't getting hit really at all. Ramirez landed nothing of consequence, but it was just horrible to watch. I mean, Ring Magazine had the best fight of the year last week with Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, and last night they had the worst. It was just really hard to watch. Nothing was happening. I think I gave Jose Ramirez one round that was really just out of pity. And, I mean, to be fair, he wasn't really trying to do much either. He wasn't throwing much at all. And I don't know. I was really disappointed with Devin Haney. He still won his fight, but not in good fashion at all. It was a very hard watch. And then you have Ryan Garcia, who I didn't even realize this because of how bad because of how bad Haney Ramirez is. Garcia and Rolly were number 5th on that list for the least amount of punches thrown. I didn't even realize. My perception was so off that I was like, okay, this is still better because you had that second round knockdown, but really nothing happened for the rest of the fight. It was just kind of Rolly, doing a little bit more, landing the bigger shots, and Ryan just looking very frustrated and confused and just not knowing what to do. And this really sucks for Ryan. I saw he was emotional after because, saying it felt like a sparring match, and you've got, a guy who had a really, really odd and tough and troubling past 2 years or so. It finally seemed like he was on the right path. He was putting boxing first. He came in tonight in great health, good weight for him, good mindset, and he just wasn't enough. And it kind of reminds me, like, Ryan Garcia has never been that, uh, you know, top tier fighter. He really hasn't. I mean, sure, he's had a fantastic career so far. He's made a lot of money. He's had big knockouts, but we got to Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis dominated that fight and stopped him. But, then we see Ryan Garcia fight Oscar Duarte. He looked good there. And then you have the Devin Haney fight, which, I kid you not, you can find me one person who was picking Ryan Garcia going into that fight. Nobody was. Nobody thought he would win. Maybe some people did after all the build-up, and they just thought he was funny. But everybody was worried about him, saying he shouldn't be fighting. And, I mean, even just before all the erratic stuff, it was like Devin Haney outboxes Ryan Garcia for 12 rounds. And Devin had a horrible night. We find out Ryan was on PEDs, so you can't really put too much faith in that win, and that's why it's a no contest now. But that win on so-called win on Devin Haney really just made everyone forget about he's not the most world-class level fighter, and him talking about, oh yeah, I lost to Tank because of the rehydration clause. That absolutely had an effect on his performance, but Tank beat him. And we saw last night Rolly outboxing him really for a lot of it, a guy that Rolly has been, kind of crapped on. And here we are where it's like, well, what do we do now? And some people are saying, let's still just do Haney and Garcia. Let's just do it. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. It's still a big fight. They're still evenly matched. But, man, if you ask me, my interest level for that fight is just not as much as it was. I would still love to see it happen. It's just, if they had both won tonight, it would have been tremendous. And to be honest, if they had done that fight tonight, the hype still would have been off the charts. It still would have been crazy. Now you've heard it. You've heard that fight. I don't even know if it can still happen. So I don't really know. Rolly now has the WBA regular title, so Boots is probably going to fight Shakram Giasov. He'll be ordered against the winner of that. So good for him. Teofimo Lopez defended his WBO and Ring Magazine world title. And look, man, we knew there was going to be some kind of upset tonight or last night, and it was Rolly Romero beating Ryan Garcia. That was the one that ended up happening. I and most people thought if anybody's going to get upset, it's going to be Teo. Barboza was on an incredibly hot run, and Teo has been very inconsistent in his past few fights. So I picked Barboza going into this fight, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought he had some success early on, but Teo showed how much potential he really has. And it sucks how inconsistent he is, because he is really one of those guys that when it matters, he shows up. For his fights against Steve Claggett and Jermaine Ortiz, it was like, man, what's going on with this guy? Like, this is not the guy we saw beat Lomachenko. He lost to Kambosos. It just doesn't make any sense. And then tonight, he needed the win, and he showed, don't forget, I'm still a great, and he really is a great fighter. And he looked phenomenal in there. He honestly dominated. I love the showboating. I love showing how skilled you are. He was so elusive. Barboza was having no success for most of the rounds. Teo wasn't landing huge shots or anything, but was just boxing a masterclass. And now I'm glad that he got his flowers and stuff, and it really made him look a lot better because of how pathetic Devin and Ryan both looked last night. So I do want to say congrats to Teo. He looked amazing. He's saying he wants to come up to 147 and fight Boots. I got no problems with that. He comes up to 147. You have to put him at number 2. You can't say I mean, I think that Devin Haney is still a fantastic fighter. And I think that he's hard to beat, and we saw Ryan Garcia do it, but we didn't in the same way. So that's why I feel like we just need Devin and Ryan to fight still to get it back on track. But I wouldn't even be mad if they did Devin versus Teo. That's a fight a lot of people are saying. That'd be good. Devin versus Rolly Romero would be a lot of fun now. Or I don't know about a lot of fun, but it would make sense. Because now you've got these guys up there. I saw people talking about Ryan Garcia, Pitbull Cruz. That's a fight that will guarantee you action, and it's still a good opponent. I mean, if you remember, Pitbull beat Rolly, and Pitbull's on a little bit of a comeback trail right now, so I wouldn't mind seeing that fight either. There's a lot of different options we can go with this. If I were to say it, I still really want to see Garcia and Haney too. I know that we probably won't, but actually I don't know that. They were supposed to face off in the ring after, and they didn't because Garcia lost, and I know some people may not have interest in it. I definitely have a lot less, but I still want to see it. And I just feel like while both needed a win last night and neither got it in great fashion or didn't get it at all, I think that now, after that, they both need something to get people back on the train. Because Devin has had trouble getting fans back on the train for a while, and last night only hurt him. He was getting destroyed on like Twitter and stuff. And then you look at Ryan Garcia, his star power, his persona was at an all-time high after the Devin Haney fight. And the return, I mean, he was by far the main event. Everyone's talking about this as the Ryan Garcia fight, forgetting Devin and Teo were even on the card. He was at an all-time high. and then just fizzles out. So I think that we need to see this fight run back at some point. I'd like it to be next because I feel like both need a big fight and a big win to push themselves back over, because we're going to get something big with those guys. The build-up's going to be great again. And even if both looked bad last night, if Devin beats Ryan, it's going to push him up to the moon. If Ryan beats Devin, he's back on top. So I think that we need to see that one still. And you know, and I'm not mad at Teo fighting Boots. We knew that was kind of the plan. You've got a lot of options for Teo. I think he could still stay at 140 and fight a guy like Richardson Hitchens in a unification. That's really the only fight I have a lot of interest for him at 140. He goes to 147. You do have Devin Haney. You do have Rolly Romero. You do have Boots Ennis, Mario Barrios, Brian Norman. There's a lot of fun guys in that division. Now it's all of a sudden, it was so bad and now it's so good. Oh, Connor Benn is another one I totally forgot about. He was there last night. You can put him in there with any of these guys. We know he's wanted Devin Haney for a long time. That's a mega fight. You could do Ryan Garcia because both of them are not necessarily the top of the top in that division anymore. But they're still superstars. They're still superstars. Coming off a short loss, Ryan Garcia versus Connor Benn makes so much sense, and so does Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez. There's so many combinations that we can do. So I don't know. It was weird because it was both an event that did not deliver and left so much more questions than answers, but I still was happy that we got it. Times Square did not look phenomenal until it got to nighttime. Once the sun went down, it looked a lot better with the lights, but the setup was just not good, and people were destroying it, saying like, oh my God, look at what they promised. The fences were 10 feet tall, so you couldn't see into it. You had people blocked a block away. They weren't allowed to get close. So much structures and stuff you couldn't even tell it was Times Square, a lot of it. It was just a really weird setup, and I feel like it kind of, part of the reason of doing it in Times Square is to have this insane atmosphere, and you didn't get that. There wasn't an atmosphere. So, it's kind of weird. It just felt like a really weird event. And same with Ryan Garcia saying, yeah, I felt like a sparring match, and I see what he means. It just felt so awkward. Whole lot of implications coming out of it. I didn't think the production looked great. I did see that apparently they offered tickets to New York City gyms, boxing gyms that is, and they showed up and were, not allowed to get close to the ring. They give them, and say, oh yeah, come get tickets. And then they show up and they're stopped a mile away from actually getting into to see the fight. So it kind of sucked. I did see a video of one guy who was at a hotel or apartment balcony, and he had a perfect view of the ring. The construction workers watching behind it was just incredible. I did like the walkouts with them showing up in the cars, but there's also a lot of logistical issues. They should have really just made like a tent before then for them to show up 20, 30 minutes before, because, we're seeing like, oh yeah, Michael Barr saying they're on their way because they're in traffic because it's New York. I mean, it was just so weird. I don't know. There was no knockouts. And I mean, last year's card, there was no knockouts either, but a lot of the fights on that card weren't great. This one, it was worse, You still had Eubank Ben at the end of the night, which made everyone forget about the lackluster undercard. This one, it just wasn't awesome. So I don't know where we go from here. A lot of options for all the guys. You got Barboza and Ramirez as well, which we're not even really talking about because they didn't look great and they lost their fights. So who knows what we do next for them. There's so many options coming out of this card, and I don't really know what it is next. We'll talk more maybe on Monday's episode. We'll do a longer episode and talk about what that could be, and we'll have more information on what's next. But we're hearing the card to 260,000 buys, which is really not as much as I would think. I mean, you look at Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez. They're not fighting each other, so I get that. But this is in Times Square, three of the biggest names in American world boxing, and they only sold 260,000 pay-per-view buys. It's just not as big as we hoped it would be. Again, these are just projections. We don't know what the numbers truly are. We'll find that out soon. It's not a bad number. It's just not what you would hope for. BKFC had a fight night last night as well in Clearwater. I thought this one was a really good card. Jared Warren was in the main event. Ran through Joseph Carrera in like 30 seconds. It was really fun. Ryan Raber, Matt Goyman. I really enjoyed that fight. That was good. Michael Larimore and Ace Samples was in one round, and 4 knockdowns between both guys in that round. It was tremendous. Joe White, Brady Meister, similar ordeal. 2 rounds, and there was like 6 or 7 knockdowns between them. Nathan Rivera, Alex Castro was great. Rodney Hinton was an animal. He had a great win. Anthony Yost and Chachi Versace started off the fight in a really fun fashion. It was a really good card. I watched it this morning, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a big guy on BKFC. I don't think that they've got a lot of names necessarily, but you can always turn it on and just see some just train wreck fights, and that's what you got last night. It was good action, which we didn't get in Times Square, but hey, we've got another Real Season card tonight. one that I hope will be better. It's more fights, and I really do think this one will be better. You got guys like Canelo, Jaime Munguia, Bakoli, and Ajagba that you just know are gonna be action fights, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So some other stuff. Just before we wrap up again, it's going to be a short episode. We're just going to talk about some news that's happened since yesterday's episode. Canelo Alvarez said he is willing to fight Chris Eubank Jr. This comes as no surprise. We know that was potentially in the pipeline, and it is looking like it could happen. That could happen in February after Eubank and Ben potentially rematch, or Eubank gets another big fight. Eubank's star power is at an all-time high, and Canelo is looking for easy fights. That's a huge money fight for him, and it's an easy fight for him. So absolutely, you can't blame him for saying he's willing to fight. And we knew that was gonna get brought up at some point. I really don't hope the fight happens, just because I don't see a lot of point. But I also wouldn't complain either. It would just be like, whatever, retirement tour fight. Queensberry has officially announced that it will be at Portman Road on June 7th. We're going to get Fabio Wardley versus Justice Hooney for the WBA Interim Heavyweight Championship. So we knew that Jerome Miller was injured with a shoulder injury, and they were looking for an opponent. We were hearing it could be Justice Hooney, could be Filip Hrgovic, could be Lawrence Okoli, and of those options, the last one I wanted was Justice Hooney, just because I feel like he's too green, and we kind of saw that in the Kevin Lerena fight where they pushed him up pretty far, and then they're like, okay, we should probably slow down here, and then Metron pulled him back a little bit and had him doing some smaller fights in Australia. Well, he jumped up the ladder again. And listen, I think he's still a fantastic heavyweight prospect. I think he could be champion one day, maybe. But he's getting thrown in really early with Wardley. I think Wardley wins this fight, and I'm pretty confident in saying that, more so than I was with the Miller fight. There's still upset potential, sure, and I'm glad for Hooney's getting a big opportunity, but I think that Wardley wins this one. Undercard, you've got Sam Gilly versus Louis Green. That's a fight that we've been waiting for a while. It was meant to happen. That'll be for the British Super Welterweight Championship as well as the Commonwealth. It's a good fight, one that I am excited to see. Sam Gillies looked really good, and Louis Green had the first-round knockout over Jack McGann. And then Sam Gilly knocks Jack McGann out in 4 rounds after their first fight got postponed. So, there's some fun fights on this card. I did see some people kind of crapping on it, saying it's not great. Pierce O'Leary will be fighting for the EBU Super Lightweight title, the European, which we knew was going to happen. I don't know who that's going to be against. I think maybe it's going to be John Fernandez. Kind of worrying they haven't announced an opponent yet, but good, we're going to get that fight on there. Mike Perez versus Stephen Ward will be on here in a 10-round cruiserweight affair. That could be okay. Lewis Richardson will make his pro debut. That'll be very hyped up. And then you've got some other prospects. So it's not the best card. When you look at it, it's a stadium show. It's not a big stadium card. But when you look at the main event of Fabio Wardley, Justice Hooney, that's no pay-per-view main event. So you kind of actually have to expect it's not going to be the biggest card ever. And I'm not mad at it. I am curious what this Usyk Dubois 2 undercard is going to be. They're going to have to stack that one a lot. But this one, yeah, no, I think that I'm overall okay with it. Nate Diaz tweeted Alcatraz ... So we know that Nate Diaz, that KSI and Conor McGregor were talking about an Alcatraz fight. We know Alcatraz is now going to happen March in 2026. Now, I don't know if Nate Diaz tweeted this because it happened during the Times Square card. Maybe he was saying this is a bad idea. There's no atmosphere. Same thing's going to happen with Alcatraz. Or if he's saying, I'm going to be fighting at Alcatraz. And if he's fighting Alcatraz, we know who they're going to try and set up with him. It's going to be KSI. I wouldn't be mad at that. I thought Nate Diaz was fun enough in the Jake Paul fight. Didn't look great. I thought his fight with Jorge Masvidal was tremendous. We know that KSI has a relationship with Turkey, and Turkey would put him in with somebody tough like Nate Diaz. So I really have no problems if that happens, but we'll see. Nate Diaz is one of those guys that we just don't know when he is going to fight again and if he does, so we'll see. PBC is apparently working on making Jermell Charlo versus Keith Thurman for the summer. I think this is a good fight. We knew that they were going to do Keith Thurman, Tim Tszyu finally, and then Tim Tszyu activated his rematch clause to challenge Sebastian Fundora for just the WBC 154 title, which I didn't love because it, stopped the Fundora-Zayas talks and kind of left Keith Thurman out in the wind. But I think this is actually a better fight for Keith Thurman. You have Jermell Charlo, who hasn't fought in a year and a half. This way he can get back in the ring in a fight that you'd probably put him as the favorite in. 2 guys that have not been active, and they're trying to get back into that title picture at 154 pounds. I think this is a good 50-50 fight to both get them in there. They're both PBC guys. I really have no issues with that fight. We know that PBC is looking to be doing a pretty big card on July 19th with Manny Pacquiao and Mario Barrios, Tim Tszyu, and Sebastian Fundora. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this lands on there, and it's one of those cards where there's no distinctive huge main event for pay-per-view, but it's just the card has so many big names on it that it becomes a pay-per-view. Maybe they do this one in August. I'm not sure, but I'm liking that PBC is trying to put together a more active schedule. And speaking of that, we should get the announcement on Tank Roach 2 soon, if that's still happening June 21st, but I kind of have doubts now. And then lastly, before we wrap up, Overtime Boxing has announced their next event. I don't know why they're not coming back to Atlanta, because I would really, really like them to. But it's whatever. They're going to be in Philly on June 13th. It's going to be Liana Cruz headlining. We don't know who she's fighting yet, but she'll be in a WBA Super Flyweight title eliminator. Champion is Jasmine Artiga, who had a robbery win in March on ProBox TV, but she is now the champion. Dante Lane, who's a fantastic prospect, will be on that show as well. David Dynamite Lopez will be on there. Brandon Pizarro. So some decent fighters. I think this is going to be a pretty fun card. We'll see. I do like the OTX cards a good bit. And yeah, I like that they're moving around, but I'm from Atlanta, so I'd like some more Atlanta fights. That's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening. Again, follow me on X. I'm going to be tweeting a lot tonight, scoring all the big fights, talking about Canelo. Tomorrow morning/afternoon, we'll see. We're going to drop episode 49. We're going to break down Canelo Alvarez, William Skull, Naoya Inoue, Ramon Cardenas on Sunday night. Monday morning, episode 50, talking about that. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the fights tonight, and peace out.